Welcome, everybody, to the Lit Podcast. It is my honor to welcome my good friend here, Adam Coury. Actually, we're just now getting to know each other, but I feel like I've known you, so we'll call it good. How are we feeling today, Adam?
Well, I mean, after the exercises that you put me through from the moment I walked through the door, I feel absolutely fantastic. Did a little sauna, little cold plunge. First time cold plunger today.
Welcome.
I know. I feel so welcome.
On the other side of the pain.
On the other side. You know, it's interesting because, like, you see the people that get in the cold plunge and you, like, see their reaction and you're kind of like, I mean, what is it really like? I mean, I've jumped into cold rivers before. I've jumped into cold pools, but I've never, like, intentionally done a cold plunge. And you're right. Like, that first, like, 10 to 15 seconds, you're like, what is going on? Your body's
Shock.
Your body's just freaking out. That shockwave, I believe, is what you described it as. And no, it was. And then afterwards, you turned on some music, shook it out a little bit. It was absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, dopamine junkies. You know, that's what helps get us in a good state of mind. You know, is that a big benefit of it is it literally makes the rest of your life way easier. You do one hard thing, it makes everything else, like, just by sheer comparison, this isn't that bad. So even jumping on a podcast can be anxiety driving for some people who do come on. But it's not anywhere near as bad as what it feels like inside of that cold plunge. So there's like, oh, this ain't that bad actually. So in general, one cold plunge a week seems to lower anxiety symptoms. And I can feel that in my own life. When I do it regularly, things that once bothered me, they just don't bother me nearly as much or at all.
Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, as humans, I think that we, especially in today's, you know, modern age where comfortability is key, or everybody wants to find comfortability, you know, you really find your growth whenever you put yourself in hard situations. Like, without hard situations, like, it's not possible to grow. It's the same thing as an athlete. Like, you're not going to become more athletic. You're not going to grow a muscle without actually pushing it to its full limit. And I think that, you know, in society today, we fall into the trap of just easy street and just expecting everything to come to us instead of allowing ourselves to truly, like, feel that pain and be present. I think you told me, even whenever I was jumping in the cold plunge, you were like, dude, whenever you get in there, you got to embrace the suck for a minute. Like, you got to breathe through it. You got to find your center. You got to
go meet it.
Yeah, you go meet it.
Yeah, there's a narrative shift. If the pain is coming to you, right, that is like trauma. If I'm going to the pain, that is power. It flips that switch. And which is very important is that my main practice is going to be psychiatry and psychotherapy. I do a lot of somatic work, which is what this is. So I'm trying to reframe that belief within my patients' minds, because they're always like running from everything. I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing anymore. We're flipping the narrative where we are the ones who are pursuing. We are the ones who are engaging. That's a very powerful shift, Adam.
Yeah, because, like, escapism, you have to deal with that just all the time. Like, we're all running from something in some capacity, like in our
taxes.
Lives. Taxes, yeah. No, taxes is a good one. I actually just taught a course to some of my clients. It's a company. They have a bunch of contractors that work for them, and I was actually talking to them about how to work through and work with the tax system as a 1099 contractor. And it's really interesting how many people I actually meet with that are 1099 contractors, and you start talking about taxes, and all of a sudden, like, they don't say anything. And then as you dig into it, it's like, so when was the last time you filed your taxes? And they're like, you filed taxes. It's like, yes. Like when was the last time you filed? I don't know. Like, you're supposed to do that. And then, like, you get into it, and, like, they've literally been avoiding it. I had one guy, actually, kid you not. It's funny whenever you work with people, whenever you, like, ask them very direct questions and ask them to take responsibility, what transpires. And he had been, you know, I get on the phone with him, we're talking, and we start talking about taxes. I'm like, yeah, about, you know, ask him the question, like, when did you file your taxes last? And he's like, man, honestly, like, I've been meaning to file my taxes for 2 years now. And I'm like, so you have taxes for 2 years. I'm like, okay, what's holding you back from filing your taxes? Well, I have to get the 1099 from this company and 1099 from this company, and they just never sent it to me. And I'm like, okay, so they never sent it to you, or you've never asked for it? No, like, they've never sent it to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to challenge you to do something. Let's see if we can eliminate this task, because you've been doing this, putting this off for 2 years, and it's sitting on your subconscious. He's like, yeah. So you've been escaping from
Procrastination.
And so I look at him and I'm like,
Avoidance.
Both,
yeah.
And so I look at him and I'm like, hey, listen, why don't we do this? Whenever we get off the phone, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to take 30 minutes of dedicated time, and I want you to do nothing but concentrate on collecting the information that you need to file your taxes, your 1099. I was like, and then I want you to, after you get that information, then I want you to call me back. And I want that to be the only task that you concentrate on for 30 minutes straight. Calls me back like 2 hours later, and he's like, dude, I can't believe I've been putting this off.
For too easy.
For 2 years.
It's too easy. Yeah, it's way easier than what you think it is. That's the crazy nature about avoidance and procrastination is you spend more energy and pain avoiding and procrastinating than it would take to simply do the thing.
That's right.
Yeah, but that is the nature of psychological aversion. Like you just, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to do it. And I see it in my own self all the time. You know, the history of, I don't like to, overdiagnose, but certainly with ADHD is if you don't like stuff, you don't want to do it. It's the weirdest thing. And I know that it's simple. I know that it's easy. So like building people plans ahead of time. So like I'll have people pick out 2 days a week where your job is to pick out the things. What are the things that I've been procrastinating on? What are the dragons? I want you slaying 2 dragons 2 times a week. And they're very simple. A difficult conversation that is not even that bad. You think it's going to be bad and it's not actually bad. Or something like taxes. It could be knocked out in a couple of hours if you actually just did it. So the goal is to be proactive on it. If I'm proactive, I'm not being reactive. If I'm reactive, I'm aversive. If I'm proactive, I'm charging through it. I'm already locked into a certain mindset of this is not how I feel about it. I'm going all the way in. So generally speaking, if I can get someone doing that twice a week, every week, eventually they actually get ahead of schedule and they're starting to do things that they didn't even know were on the board. And I love that.
Yeah, I call those big, hairy, audacious monsters.
I like dragons because it also starts off, it's a lizard. Lizards turn into dragons. If it started off as a very small thing, like the little weird noise you heard in your car.
Right.
Like that's a lizard. You could take that in, get it fixed for $50. You ignore it. Now it's a loud knock. And then your engine goes boom. Now it's a dragon, right? Or that conversation you should have with your lady. At first, it was a lizard. I said something passively aggressive unintentionally, or I was just checked out. And, and then I can see her kind of reaction, like, she'll be all right. She'll get over it. Not that big of a deal. And then a couple hours go by, no text replies. And then it's like, I'm sure she'll be all right, Then like a couple days go by and it's like, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And then boom, then here comes this, 2-hour conversation when you're trying to go to bed.
Yeah, that is the procrastination monster. I like the way that you refer to it as like that little sound in your car, right? Like the little tiny tune up. One of the most powerful tools that I've stumbled upon over the last 2-3 years, hardest 2 to 3 years of my life, by the way. And I think I've shared some of that with you, but journaling is one of the most powerful things that I've found, because you take this concept, you take this thought, you take this restlessness, and you actualize it into a physical form that you can then go revisit. And one of my favorite things to do is, like, if I have something that is just like massively overbearing and I feel like I can't share it with someone, like it is a like true like monster, right? Like, and it started off as a lizard. It was something small in my past that now has grown into this monster that's like I'm giving it space in my head, in my cognitive reserve, and it's just kind of rumbling around in my limbic system, and I'm just like, but I can't really move past it. Whenever I write it down and just get it out there in the journal that's specifically for brain throw up, if you will, and then I revisit it after like a workout or after like a couple hours, a lot of times you look at it and you're like, have I really been this concerned about this one item for that long, and I've been procrastinating putting it off? And then you really get to actualize it, and you get to go, I'm so terrified of something that hasn't actually happened yet. And that's the difference between living in a faith-based narrative and a fear-based narrative. We go through life, regardless of what your belief is, and you can really only live two ways. Like, are you moving forward with a faith that things are going to work out, or are you living petrified in fear to where you're always terrified that you're never going to be good enough, or you're never going to measure up?
The most common phrase in the Bible is of the fear not category. So really got to sit and think about that. For millennia, passed down for who knows how long, the most frequently said thing by God is, do not operate from a position of fear. It is going to wreck you. And he says it in a variety of different ways, numerous times. Right. And also Jesus Christ, that was his most common imperative statements, was of the be not afraid category. So to me, I'm going straight to neuroscience, nervous system. That's what I do. So at the core of the nervous system, there's going to be two sides. My brain is operating in a position of, am I okay or am I not okay? If I'm operating from that core, is going to be, I'm okay. All of the thoughts are going to be awesome. The beliefs are going to be good. The actions are going to follow suit. If they're on the other side, that's fear. That's prey mentality. I'm running from something. I'm not okay. So the beliefs there are going to be rough, right? I'm insecure. I'm damaged. Thoughts are going to follow suit and actions are going to follow suit. So there's always the base of it, the foundation of faith versus fear is actually at a nervous system level as well. And we want to make sure that we get down to that and operate from that position of abundance versus that position of scarcity, right? The weird part is that you can really control people with fear because you lock them into this mode. If I can get you here, you're manipulatable, right? You're acting in a certain type of way that I can predict. If I'm getting you operating from a position of abundance, I can't really control you. And I also can't sell you stuff. So the narrative of fear totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a scientist on there, and he was talking about the fact that whenever it comes to social media, fear is a more powerful emotion than, or fear of something, or having a scarcity mindset is more powerful and invokes a larger reaction than the opposite. And so a lot of the algorithms have basically been trained to produce and to support more fear-based narratives, which is why you see that all the time. It's like, and depending on how you've trained your algorithm and how exactly you've interacted with content really dictates what exactly you're going to see on your feed. But I think it's remarkable how in society today, that's really what we've fallen into, is this scarcity mindset of like, there's just not enough. I mean, and we fall into, how much do I want to share with other people? Even of ourselves, of our thoughts, right? Like even of like our emotions, like how much do we actually want to share? Because we're constantly in this fear mindset of like, there's just never going to be enough.
Right. So why would that be the case? If somebody is operating from a position of they have everything, then this person, I can't control them. It's just that simple. So that's why that would be also associated with like godliness, is to have and operate from a position of abundance. And there's a reason that, God said that so many times in so many different ways, is so that it would get it through your thick skull.
Yeah.
And even my own self, I still have to catch myself all the time.
Yeah.
Operating like, okay, whoa, what are you doing? And like, all my patients, I'm like, you are in first world America. You have access to infinite knowledge at your fingertips. You can change societies, environments. You can go get 10 more degrees before you die. There's plenty of access to loan monies and changes and shifts. And you're trying to operate from this position as though you don't have anything. There are 10 trillion cells in your body with billions of biochemical processes that are spontaneously generating your human experience. And you think that you're powerless? You're crazy, right? You're insane. That is insanity. That thought process has not worked for you. Insane means to do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So if you're operating from scarcity and you're like, no matter what I do, I never feel better. Duh. You could never fill the God-sized hole in your heart with that. You're in a state of lack. You're in a state of you don't have it. And the best thing to do is flip the switch. Is wait a minute, I have absolutely everything that I need to do everything that I need to do. And as soon as you say that, it flips the mindset from I'm trying to catch up, which is probably the most frequently seen way of life that I see in people is I'm trying to catch up. Everything is, I got bills, relationships, everything's burning all the time. And they're just living that whole way frantic existence versus I'm actually getting ahead. I have everything that I need now. And now I'm just getting ahead of schedule. That little flip is like, in which case your vision literally expands. You go from laser beam to light bulb where you can actually see the arena and the things around you. And now I can start to say, oh, hey, well, actually, I want to go build this, or hey, I want to talk to these people or improve this relationship. And once again, that's a nervous system thing. So when you engage your fight or flight, it literally shunts blood from your forebrain, your higher consciousness and your awareness, and it pulls it into your hindbrain, which is like your animal systems, like your fear-based systems. It also like shoots like sympathetic like energy up this way, so it tightens the muscles of your face, and also in your inner ear. It's called the tensor tympani. So it tightens your eardrums to where you can't hear as much even. So you're literally in a state of locked in, and you're literally in a state of decreased consciousness. That is an easier person to thwart or to manipulate than somebody who their ears and their eyes are open and they're seeing what's actually going on. Interesting, eh?
That's really interesting. You know, I saw a research where this guy actually researched like prayer, and like they studied people and what was going on whenever they were in a state of prayer, in a state of gratitude, and what it does to your neurological system. And how have you, I'm just curious, like with the patients that you've worked with, like what do you see whenever they start actually expressing gratitudes more, or they start having that shift in their mindset?
It's pretty much immediate. So if I can get somebody to experience even one positive emotion, it takes so little water for the dry earth to grow. Like you look outside, we're in the middle of September. It hasn't rained in weeks. And these trees are still booming. Flowers are still growing. It takes so little. And same thing for my own. There's a few moments in my life where I actually felt a positive emotion that kept me alive for probably a decade. And if I can access that for a person one time who hasn't felt that in a very long time, you ignite that fire back in them. And then when you teach them that they can ignite that own fire within their own selves at any time with simple thoughts, beliefs, and good breath work, then you just gave that person the ability to continuously fulfill themselves and sustain themselves. And that, like when people feel when they feel gratitude, they will do anything for it. When I first dove into the gratitude research and I saw that gratitude rewires trauma, right? It literally is, oh, this was a bad thing, and I express, thanks to it, it flips it from victim into victor narrative, right? And that is extremely powerful for somebody who's lived a life of victimhood. I felt this happen in my own, because I used to always I've had life or death conversations with myself since I was 5, when I saw my little brother get ran over and backed over, right? So since then, that was like life is just not cool, right? It is just out here to get you. Whatever happens, happens. Like nobody cares, right? And I lived my whole life that way until I finally flipped the switch. I realized that, this situation was designed to teach me the value of human life and to respect it and to give that out as much as I possibly can. When I thought that thought, this 25-year pain and anger literally went poof, and then it rematerialized itself into strength the other direction. On the other side of that pain was the power. And then I inherited that, and now it's like, oh, well, cool. Well, let's get people rocking then. And then I was able to truly step into the doctoring spirit that I really wanted to, which was how can we give people better energy, attitudes, and better health moving forward.
I love that, dude. I've actually got a story for you.
I'm all ears, brother.
So I love the concept of reframing. I love the concept of taking something that could be a negative and reframing it into a positive. So I went up to
one quick thing I forgot to say.
Yes,
in the gratitude research was that I really struggled with it on the front end. I didn't like it. I was like, I didn't even want to pet dogs. I didn't want to do hugs. Like I was mean, dude. Like it made me uncomfortable. And I remember reading this paper, and it said that the fastest way to make a stronger person is to make a more grateful person. You're only going to fight for it as much as you love it or you like it. So if you don't love, you're not going to fight as much. You can only do so much driven by frustration. And in med school, I had fizzled out as much frustration and hatred as I could possibly push myself using that. Like you're not good enough, just using that chip on your shoulder to keep beating yourself up. And that has a limit. Love doesn't have a limit.
I love that, dude. In relation to that, before I get into the story, one of the most powerful things that I have found whenever it comes to gratitude is if someone does you wrong, or if you start feeling animosity towards someone, or if you start feeling like someone doesn't understand you, pray for that person. And don't just pray for them. Don't just pray for them. Pray blessings over them. And don't just pray regular blessings. Pray that God will literally give them more than what they could ask for. Pray for them that God will bring them exactly what they're searching for. Pray for them that God will bless their life so abundantly that it will shock everybody. And do it intentionally, and do it with absolute no regard for yourself. Anytime you get this tinge of resentment or this tinge of victimhood or this tinge of someone's doing you wrong, dude, that is one of the most powerful exercises I've found, because it's just completely selfless. Because I think we get stuck in like these like forgiveness narratives to where like we don't want to forgive someone else, but like really it's kind of a projection of like insecurity into the situation, and it's our way of like controlling something. Whenever you truly like relinquish something, or you truly like surrender it, it really just brings a significant amount of peace. I know there's people that have hurt me so deeply in my life, and I really allowed that narrative in my mind to control me. And anytime they came up and thought, like I would feel anxiety or I'd feel anger. And ever since I've started this practice of like, if I feel that way to someone, to pray blessings over them, dude, it has completely changed my entire outlook. Like, I don't look at anybody as like a nemesis or enemy anymore. I just look at them as like a child of God. And it's like, if you just view everybody through that lens, it makes life so much simpler, because you don't hold resentment. There's nothing in your backpack to hold you back from being able to be your true self. And, I think that we get caught up in this world of like just holding on to these resentments, or, you get caught up in, this is something else that's really interesting. You get so caught up in proving the people that did you wrong. Like you want to prove the people that don't believe in you wrong, that a lot of times we don't listen to the people that do believe in us, and we don't prove them right. Like God, like, because
it goes right back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah,
is that envy or jealousy or unwillingness to forgive is a position of lack. I don't have what I need to be okay right now, so I'm just going to keep being a jerk and not allowing myself to be fulfilled, or not allow myself to forgive. That's pride. I'm having pride in this emotion, and pride is essentially I'm putting this emotion that I'm feeling above the wholeness of the rest of me. If I was to simply forgive this, the rest of my life would be way better. Pride says, nope, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to be mad at you. I don't care what you say. And that is very, very, very toxic and damaging to your psyche and your system and reality and all. So I would definitely be very, very keen to that. Second thing that was coming to my mind was that the devil is the god of lack. Yeah. So the snake, you got everything, but you don't got this. And that's how you get got, right? And I would definitely just kind of remember these things. Also, funny point was the whole like envy and jealousy thing, which I think is why social media is so detrimental, is that you do see people that are doing better than you. They're not better than you. That they're just having a good moment. And it's also, you're also looking at their highlight reel, They might have a horrible life, but you're just seeing them on a boat, or on a yacht somewhere. And even for my own self, I could feel those tinges of jealousy or envy coming up. And I literally catch it. I'm like, dude, wait a minute. Like, yo, congratulations to this person. Like kind of what you're saying, say a little prayer for them. Like, hey, they're out there killing it. Like, I'm so happy for you. Instead of being like holding back and just being mean. And that's just lack, dude, just pure lack. And that's driving my thoughts, beliefs, and actions. It's absolutely unacceptable. And whatever we're practicing, we're becoming. So whenever we start making prayer and pushing gratitude out into the world and automatic, it just makes everything else like infinitely better.
Yeah, dude. And the coolest thing, having a deepening relationship with God and like understanding that dynamic is like, I look at you and like, dude, the coolest thing is that you sitting there right now with your coffee in your shirt, like God looks at you and he goes, hey, Ben, like you're enough. Exactly where you're at right now. Like if there's someone listening to this, like, dude, I don't care where you're at. I don't care what you're doing right now in this moment. Like, you are enough. Exactly who you are, exactly all the circumstances you've gone through, exactly whatever family dynamic you had. I don't care how deep the pain is. I don't care what tears you've cried. Like, dude, like God, like literally looks at you and looks at you as enough right now. And that's something that, but the hard thing about that is you have to accept that. Like, you have to let go of those burdens. Like, you have to like get in your backpack and you have to accept that grace, because grace is freely given, but you have to accept it. And the only way you can accept it, though, is letting go of all of those traumas, like all of those things that hold you back. It's all those moments, all those insecurities. But like, that's not how God views you. Like, he literally views you as enough. Like, one of my favorite shows is, what is the show about Jesus on Netflix?
It's not just as enough is too much. As you good, you have more than required.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm going to be okay, I'm going to be all right. It's no, I'm the best that I've ever going to be. And it's only more to come. We're literally exuding way more. Like, there's so much within people. And that's the nature of God, is infinite.
Yeah.
And then when it moves to us, we are also infinite. And I love that.
Yeah, dude, because so one of the darkest times of my life, like, dude, 2 years ago, I went through one of the hardest situations in my entire life. Like, I thought I had everything, dude. Like, I was making doctor kind of money. Like, I was making really, really good money. I was in outside sales. I thought I had everything together. And dude, like, I just got gut punched. And I really started doing some soul searching and realized the fact that, like, I had built this identity based off of a lot of material stuff. And I remember, like, one night I was like down on my knees just crying out to God because, like, dude, my life was in shambles. And I remember just feeling like God was so far away. And the song came on by this guy named John Reddick. And in the song, and I've shared this so many times, in the song, he talks about, like, he's just crying out to God and saying, God, like, are you there? Are you listening to me? Like you just feel so far away. And then it hits a point to where, he's talking about, I think the name of the song is God Turn It Around. And he's just begging God to turn it around. And then it hits this point where it drops down to the build up to the chorus. And he's like, God is healing something. God is doing something right now. He is healing someone. He is saving someone. He is loving someone right now. And we get so disassociated with the fact that, like, God, our higher, whatever your higher being is, right? Like, is so far away, but it's not. Like, it's present inside of you right now. It's sitting here in this room with us right now. Like, it's communing with us right now. And, we so many times just go, well, I mean, like, you go to the highlight reels and you see other people. Well, God's probably there with them on the island, but, like, it doesn't matter where you're at. Like, if you invite him in, like, he can literally be sitting with you regardless of the circumstances. And that's a hard reality to hit. But dude, like, whenever that started clicking in my mind, it's remarkable how, like, it didn't matter what I had, how small it seemed, like, it just seemed like enough. Cause I knew that, like, regardless of my circumstances, God was going to work through all of those seemingly, like, I don't know, insignificant circumstances to create something beautiful.
Yeah. So, like, when I left the hospital and then I sold all my stuff and I was living in a van like that, I had more when I had nothing than when I had everything. And that was the reason that I did it. So whenever I, walked away from that prior life, and you have, like, I don't know, 400K jobs, 500, and just being a psychiatrist too. So it's like the holy grail. You get to talk to people and make crazy money. And then in academia, you have, like, a team of people that follow you around, and, med students, like, freaking grabbing you coffee and, just worshiping the ground that you stand on. A lot of status and stuff going on with that, and a lot of respect in the community. So it's very, like, that air of it is very, like, addictive to the ego. And this is right after the whole, pandemic, or right around the peak of it. And I saw the direction of which I was going, and there's this huge rift in me. I'm talking massive. And what I heard was, you have to surrender your earthly titles, Benjamin. You got to say goodbye to it. And this is something I had pumped 10 years of my life into, and 300 grand or more, and countless, like, I'm talking tears, 3 a.m. mornings, late night studies. Like, I'm talking all of that. And I have to just let it go. And God's like, yeah, you do. Why? Because you're over identifying with it. And check this out, it's a limitation. what you think is everything is nothing. So I was like, man, that's kind of rough. So I ended up having to do it. You know, I fought it a lot. I'm not gonna lie, for like months I fought it. I knew what to do and I fought it. I was doing the whole like run from it, like, oh, it's not that bad, just how to placate it, you know, or like justify it. And if you don't answer it, you know, if you don't pick up the phone, like it's going to come to your doorstep pretty much. And that happened to me. And essentially a situation where I had to leave for a little while. And thank God, because that literal like 4 or 5 week break away, when I got to take some personal leave, I was able to get away and to see what it was like on the outside. And then I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I'm going to do it. Sold all my stuff, turned in my papers, turned in my badge, and bought that van with the little money I had saved up. And sure, next thing you know, I'm sleeping in that van outside of a gym parking lot. I'm sleeping in the parking lot in a gym in Norman, Oklahoma, with my brother. And in those moments, I felt as though I had more. It felt like literally better, as though I was doing what was right, versus I'm over here allegedly at some high-end academic institution helping all these, you know, dozens and dozens of patients, teaching and educating. I felt more powerful in the van. What is that? Right? That is the calling. And at first it's not much. You know, I'm just living in a van. And then it evolves into I find my mission, I develop it, I grow it. I'm working one-on-one with people at a very slow level, truly understanding the nature of these conversations and the power of them. And then from that, I can gently expand. Like I put the foundation back on it. So I had to surrender everything because it was built on a false identity. It was built on ego. It was built on status. I had to let all that go to get back down to the bedrock, to the foundation that was God, that was reality as I perceive it and feel it. From that, to intentionally make sure I am putting everything exactly in place that I know that it will last not just a lifetime, but for generations, because I plan on passing this down to my children, my grandchildren, and everybody around me. And that was, honestly, this is all making sense to me just now, by the way, Adam, so thank you for this conversation. I'm realizing what actually was going on at this time of if you're feeling like rickety and shaky in your existence, there's a reason for that. So you have to let that go that's causing that. And what is bringing you, when I say stability, I mean like I would die for this level of stability. And if that's where you're operating from and then you build on that, you're going to be unstoppable. Yeah.
But it's got to be, I love that too, but it's got to be rooted in something more. Like I work with people, you know, because you knew what your calling was, you knew what your purpose was. And my understanding whenever it comes to med school, you know, is a lot of people get into it. A lot of people start for the right reason, right? Like you start to help people and then you get into it and you realize it's a little bit different whenever it comes to the pharmaceutical industry and everything else. Not demonizing it, but I'm just saying the way it is, right? And so you get into it and you start realizing, wow, like my ability to actually help people is very limited. And then you have to make a choice. Like a lot of people, like, you know, they enter a field for the calling and then they realize the fact that if they want to get ahead, they have to make concessions from their true self. And then you start building this identity and you start getting further and further away from why you started the journey in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so really finding that why, I mean, that's why my coaching program is called Solving Whys, because I want to help people find out what is your why. Like my why, for instance, is hope. Well, what does that even mean? Well, I share stories of seemingly insurmountable circumstances and tragedies in my own life to allow Christ's light to shine through all of my imperfections, not just my highlight reel, all of my imperfections, to let anybody know, regardless of where they're at, regardless of what they're going through, there's always hope. I can wake up every single day. It's like what we were talking about in the sauna. Like, dude, I wake up every single day excited doing what I'm doing. I'm not making the kind of money I was a couple years ago whenever I was doing high level sales, doing outside sales. I'm not making the kind of money that I was then. But dude, like the crazy thing is I wake up every single day excited.
This will lead to way more though.
Yeah, but yeah,
it'll lead to way more money.
And that's what matters, dude. Like, you know, we get stuck, you know, in the Bible, it talks about like, you know, enjoying the fruits of your labor, right? Like God very specifically wants us to enjoy the things that he's created. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with wealth. You should enjoy the fruits of your labor, but we get caught up in society today laboring for the fruits We labor for the material thing. We labor for the thing that we think is going to make people accept us. We labor for the thing that looks good on the highlight reel. That's what we're chasing. We're not chasing the purpose that God created us for. And then the byproduct of that is the fact that we get to enjoy God's creation. We get to enjoy beautiful things. And then we get to impart that to other people because you're living your true purpose and your true why. And in society today, man, from running organizations, running companies, partying with millionaires, billionaires, whenever I used to work in clubs and stuff, the one very, very common thing was between people that were wealthy and happy and joyful, not just fake happy, not just like this subsurface happy, was the reason why they did what they did. And if they had a deeper level of purpose, if it was they didn't care about the material stuff, it wasn't that was what they always talked about. There was this joy that you just couldn't put your finger on, but it was like, wow, the amount of confidence that person has that every single day they're waking up and they're doing what they're called to do. Like, I look at what you're doing, dude. It's fantastic. Like, you know, the way you have your clinic set up, the way that you're looking at medicine, the way you're looking at therapy, like, it's so genuine. It's so real. It's so authentic. And that's what people are really looking for today, is they're looking for authenticity, because we live in a world of just highlight reels. We live in a world where everybody wants to show their best face, but like, don't dare share the fact that you went through something to get there. Yeah. The journey is where the beauty is found. And that goes to my story, man. So I go up to CB. Crested Butte. Have you ever been to Crested Butte? Mm-mm. Oh, dude, we're going to Crested Butte.
Let's go.
No. We are going.
Can you snowboard there?
Oh, yeah. No. We'll go this winter, actually. I talked to Jofi about going. We'll go this winter.
Yeah, we could get a cabin.
Yeah,
we'll do a
my buddy Steve has a place up there.
Adventure therapy. We'll do like the trips. We'll bring a yoga instructor. We'll bring some musical instruments.
Yeah,
and then because I like to do recovery built into these kind of events nowadays. But do a mastermind up there.
Yeah,
mastermind in Crested Butte. Go ahead.
So whenever, so I go up there. So like I go up there probably 3 or 4 times a year. My buddy Steve has a cabin up in Mount Crested Butte. I love it because Crested Butte is like a true mountain town. It's kind of like Telluride. It's kind of like, it's just a true mountain town. There's nothing corporate there. So a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I made my first really big career jump. And while I was up there, I went on a hike with one of my buddies, and I went on a hike by myself to this lake at the bottom of this glacier. It's about 11,000 feet. And I hike up, it's raining. I have a really good interaction with God. I record this video, but dude, it was miserable. I got back to the cabin, and I end up like basically getting pneumonia for the rest of the trip. So it was brutal. It was terrible, but like, it was also a really cool experience. So this year I've gone through a lot. I've conquered a lot. I've started my coaching program. Like, I'm really living out my purpose. And so I decide while I'm up there, I'm like, I'm going to do that hike again. But this time, I'm going to do it on the best day. The weather's going to be perfect. Everything's going to go exactly the way it didn't go last time, because it was raining last time, and I'm going to get up there, create content. It's going to be awesome. So I wait my entire trip to go on this hike to the very last day. The weather's perfect. It had been raining all week, right? Weather's perfect. Set the setting for you. It's a high of 75. It's sunny. I'm in the best shape of my life right now. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do this. Last time it took me an hour and 20 minutes to get up. I was like, I'm going to outpace it. So I get out of my truck. I get on the trail. It's crisp. There's nobody out there but nature. I'm going up this path. It's you start at about 9,000 feet. So it's about a 2,000 foot incline. I'm crushing the hike, right? I'm loving it. Every moment of it. In my mind, I'm like, everything's going exactly the way that I had it planned. And I get up there, I walk out of the woods, because like you're walking through these glades, and I walk out of the woods and I just see this gorgeous setting. I record a video, and I'm just like, wow, like, dude, life is perfect. I get up to the lake. Whenever I get up there, like, dude, it's sunny outside. There's a couple people there, and I'm like, I'm going to wait them out, and then I'm going to sit down, record some content, journal, get close with God. It's perfect. Take my boots off, put my feet in this just crystal clear water, and all of a sudden, it starts sleeting. Out of absolutely nowhere. So this perfect vision that I have literally recreated in my mind, right? This perfect journey that I've waited the entire trip to do. I get there and it starts sleeting. So I pull my feet out of the water. I go kind of hide in the woods. I'm like, this is perfect. Everybody's going to leave. I'm going to outweight them. And then I'm going to go and have my perfect moment on my perfect journey, right? And so sure enough, stops sleeting. After about 5 minutes, I'm like, great. Everybody's left. I now get my moment, right? Step out of the trees, and this is what happened. it thunders. The one place you do not want to be is 11,000 feet on a mountain close to water whenever it's thundering and lightning outside. It is a death trap. So that moment I've got a choice. I can either die to my dream, or I can wait it out longer and possibly get struck by lightning. Well, I'm not quite that risk tolerant whenever it comes to lightning on the top of a mountain. So I start hiking down. So on the hike down, what am I doing? I'm like, dude, this sucks. This is stupid. This is retarded. I waited the entire trip for this, and now it's sleeting on me, and I'm running, and in my mind, I'm just like, what an awful thing. Like, what a terrible experience. Like, this is stupid. Like, God, I did this for you. I did this trip. I did this hike for you. I wanted to be with you, and I'm walking down this path, and it's raining, and I'm muddy, and I'm wet, and I'm cold, and I'm ducking underneath the trees, make sure I don't get struck by lightning. And then about halfway down the hike, all of a sudden, guess what happens? The sun comes out. You would think that I would be happy. No, I get more ticked off. I get more frustrated. I'm like, really? Like, this couldn't have happened 5 minutes ago? Really? Like, really? Like, you had to wait for the sun to come out. And then people are walking past me, and I'm like, oh, great. They get to go experience my journey, my vision. And then all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, how ungrateful are you? How ungrateful are you? You just hiked to a remote place. You have 2 legs to hike with. You've got the capability to come up and stay with a buddy at a cabin in Crested Butte. You just did a hike in 40 minutes that took you an hour and 20 minutes. God has shown up with you repeatedly in your life. He's given you a gorgeous day. He's given you an opportunity to spend a week with him. He's created a life for you to where you can work virtually. And you're ungrateful right now? Like, what is that, Adam? And then I flipped the switch, and I realized in that moment, I was like, dude, you know what God was teaching me in this moment? You got to enjoy the journey. And sometimes whenever you get the destination that you thought you wanted, it's not going to be what you actually freaking wanted. Everything you cooked it up to be, all the pain, everything you went through, what you were working for, the big house, the girl, whatever your thing is. And then you get there and it's not what you thought it was. And then you have a choice of what you do with it. And you know what? I reframed it. And you know what ended up happening, Ben? This is the craziest part of the entire story. So I hike back down. It's sunny. I'm in a great mood. I'm listening to music, cruising down the highway, just loving God and going, you know what? What an incredible moment. What an awesome moment. I get back to the cabin. I talk to my buddy Steve. Don't really tell him what happened because I'm just in a great mood now, right? I'm like, God, I am so grateful for what you've done in my life. I'm so grateful. And so I go to Steve and I'm like, hey man, it's like 5 o'clock. I'm like, you want to go on a drive with me? Like, I want to go, like, there's a place called Gothic Mountains, gorgeous mountain. They have this wild sanctuary down there where people study butterflies. And I'm like, I'm going to go over and drive. And normally it's packed, right? And at this point it's 75 degrees outside. It's gorgeous. The sun's coming down, fresh mountain air. And I'm like, I'm going to go on a drive. And Steve's like, no, you go by yourself. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I roll down the windows, no music on. And I'm just thinking through the journey, and I'm thinking about what I've just experienced, and I drive around this path, go through Gothic Mountain, and I pull around a corner, and I look to my left, and there's this beautiful stream. Normally, this area is packed by tourists. When I say packed, like normally like there's 10, 15 people. And I make the turn, and I pull in, and I walk down to the stream. And all of a sudden, I realize, I'm like, God, it was that easy. You were going to give me my moment the whole time. And I sat on the bank of that river and I meditated and I prayed and I thanked God. And my mom passed away from bone marrow cancer this year. It was one of the hardest years of my life. And the song that I listened to the last time I ever saw her live, Ben, was Gratitude. I don't know if you've ever heard that song before by Brandon Lake. It's Gratitude. And at the very, very end of that, man, because I really was looking for like some solace and like a moment, and I turned on that song and I just lifted my hands to the sky and I cried out at the top of my lungs. Thank God there wasn't anybody there because they would not have wanted to hear my pitches whenever it came. And I just cried out with tears streaming down my face and just thanked God for giving me that moment and not giving me what I thought I wanted, because I thought I wanted the lake. I thought that's what I wanted. That was the vision I had. But because I surrendered, because I gave it to God, because I chose to learn the lesson, and I didn't give up, All I had to do was drive down the road, and God gave me the moment I was looking for the entire journey. And so many times we get caught up in life to where we're like, man, like, I'm not enough. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I am supposed to go there, and it doesn't work out. But the beautiful thing is that God can take all things that seem terrible and turn it into good for those who love him. And so if someone's listening to this and like you're in that moment to where like you've gotten somewhere and you think that's where you were supposed to get and it's not there, I promise you, if you reframe it, if you do what Ben talked about and you look for the gratitude in the small things, God will meet you exactly where you're at if you just look for it.
You can't try to control it. You know, like, if your desire for control controls you. So it sounds like you were trying to control God into, I want this exact experience. And when you did that, surely you will be struck down. And that's where you need to go. And then you rebuild. That surrender component of it is essential. And that it can be both. Like that means to walk in lockstep with God. There's both we take the reins, but also a surrender component. They're both happening simultaneously. And it's just a balance, man. Narrow is the path to heaven and broad is the path to hell. Yeah. Control is a broad path. You know, it's easy to do, to freak out and want it and desire it. And very quickly you find yourself in hell because there's nothing that. So control means that you think that you could create better than God. Right. So the thing you had in your mind was, this is going to be better than what God can create for me. No. Right. That's relying on one's own understanding. And for us, we're finite and God is infinite. So to step into the infinite, you got to let go of what you think that you know. And I had that vision out here the other day when I was just like, God, because you want to talk about a scary job, is being a psychiatrist and being responsible for people's health and wellness and their lives. And for me, I am a go-getter. I want to do a great job to the point that I'll try to carry other people's crosses for them. And you can't do that. You cannot control it. So there's so much where I'm like trying to like get locked in. And this is also another weird field where, you know, there's not a lot of labs and tests and things that I can run. It's exclusively like faith-based. I'm believing in this person that they're going to do what they need to do. And I'm hoping for them and I'm praying for them and I'm giving the tools that they need. But at the end of the day, it's up to them to pick that up and use it. But as soon as I step into that and I try to be a hero and I try to take the credit for, oh, I saved this patient. I was like, did you crawl into their brain, Benjamin? Did you really save them? And this is for all the doctors or helping types out there. You're not a hero, you're a guide. You're not a hero, you're a guide. This is what this looks like in my life, and that's why my home is also the clinic, is that I want people to see that this is my life. I live this way. And that's what helps me show them and be that guide for them. And then, because they'll try to like come to you, put their problems on you. I'll have patients they'll try to dump on you, you know what I mean? And come in here and take just an emotional shit on you. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but just does not faze me. Like, doesn't matter how much you try to pile that on me. I couldn't carry it for you if you wanted me to. And other people, they're addicted to dropping that crap off on other people. And unfortunately, it makes you feel better for like temporarily, but it doesn't solve the root of the issue, Adam. It isn't doing anything for anybody. So whenever we catch ourselves vying for control, which is also an anxious and lack position anyways, is, oh, I need this to be a certain way. That means the operating premise is that it's not a certain way. And it is a certain way. Like, it's always here all the time, right? So the theme of this conversation is certainly to always reframe and reorient. And personally speaking, this is why I like Yahweh, or the original, like YHWH. There's no vowels, Adam. Yahweh. Yahweh. It's the breath. It's the breath of life. You can't say Yahweh. So we all breathe, Adam. It's very hard for me to say my breath versus your breath. We're both breathing. So that is the name of God. It's the spirit of life. It's the breath of life that is moving through us. So that's what we all have in common. Well, duh. We all have to breathe. If you don't breathe, what happens? you die. Secondly, it's also representative of the process of life. As I inhale, I'm taking on, I'm creating, I'm bringing in energy. And then as I exhale, I let go. And I have to release. I don't have what I need, Adam. So I breathe in. Now I have it. I'm in abundance. And I relax. Also, lion, lamb, alpha, omega, yin, yang, masculine, feminine, whatever you want to call it. There's a duality going down. And God is both of those things. The breath encompasses all of those. So be still and be with God. What that means is be still and be with. And if you do that, this thing turns off a little bit. And my energy will drop down into my body. Everything will be still. And then all of a sudden, the antenna comes online to where I can actually hear God's voice, right? And for those people who struggle with the God word, because honestly, I still struggle with the God word. I like Yahweh, personally. I do. And I think that it should always be that way. I don't even know where the word God came from when the original word was this. I don't like people messing with the words, Adam. So when I do that, I can begin to hear, how is reality speaking to me? What is the lesson that's trying to be presented to me? Because for me personally, I didn't hear like the voice of God. That's not something that, like the white beard guy in the sky, that's not something that I really affiliated with or understood or ever saw or heard. So it seems so foreign to me growing up. My mother told me that God speaks to us in realizations. So whenever something becomes real to you, it's that moment of, oh, that makes sense. That is it communicating to you, and it just clicked. Now that in that case, I've been hearing God my whole life. You're coming to understand the bigger picture. He's presenting the lesson to you. Oh, I need to quit doing this stupid ass thing that I've been doing for so long. Or I need to quit drinking. Or I need to quit eating fast food. Or like, any of these small realizations that you can kind of say, it's whatever. But when you reframe it into like, this is God communicating to me, now I just gave this way more value. I'm definitely not going to drink the beer and eat the pizza again, right? If that's because the realization is my stomach hurts and I'm hungover, suffering is God's megaphone. Hey, don't do that again. So being able to reframe that process into, okay, this is actually a very important lesson that's trying to be taught to me. That is an absolute game changer for myself. And then telling patients that, because they're waiting for some guy in the sky to talk to them. Sometimes it's that. I'm not going to lie. I hear those voices from time to time now. It's awesome. I heard one the other day on my balcony. Don't forget the beautiful things. I had like 3 patients crashing, and I was in a mood swing. I was horrified. And then I was in a state of like, talk about fear-based thinking of, oh my God, like this person's like freaking going to kill themselves. And screaming mother on the phone, like, holy shit. Like I'm talking crazy, Adam. You get 3 of those back to back to back, and it's your day off and you're chilling and you're trying to recover. And I'm talking, I'm in a spot. So I'm out there just like, dude, I'm breathing my ass off up here. Like I'm what do you say, like praying like, yo, help your boy. And then sure enough, as I peered up through the clouds or up through the trees and the clouds, it was this voice that said, don't forget the beautiful things, Benjamin. My perspective was everything is going to be bad right now, right? All my patients are doing shitty. Everything is wrong. And then as soon as I heard those words, I brought my attention over to all of my people that are doing very, very well, that are out there, like I'm talking crushing it, influencing thousands of people, healthy, happy, thriving, like they're helping to just exponentially. And I have maybe a couple people who aren't doing so well and so many doing so great. And yet all of my focus is going to be on what's wrong instead of what's right. That is only looking at half of the equation. You don't ignore negative things. Like positive psychology, for example, big thing that I teach people. People don't like it because they think, oh, it's just rampant positivity or happiness. I'm like, no. What I'm saying is with the same level of attention and focus and diligence that you give to focusing on bad shit, I simply want you to put that same level of focus and diligence onto the good things also. So we bring balance to the equation that is life. So it's not ignoring the negatives. It's just giving credit to them, but also giving credit to the other thing. So I'm a scientist at heart. So are you. Everything's just A plus B equals C. If I'm only looking at the bad things and then the other side of the equation isn't making any sense, you're not taking into account all the variables, you idiot. And then you're wondering why life isn't making sense and it sucks and it's not adding up and it's out of balance. You're not looking at the full equation. Yeah. So I'm not sure where the general theme of this conversation was going, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, I think whenever it comes to
control is what started it.
Yeah, dude. You know, you can only control so much. And I like what you touched on whenever it came to the controlling of other people. You know, I think for years, so I'm a really good salesperson, right? And so for years, I've learned how to basically manipulate people into doing things that I would like them to do. I mean, manipulation is not a bad word. It's not a bad thing. Everybody's manipulating in some facet, right? Like, I think the Western culture looks at manipulation as being, like, we all are in some capacity, like...
It's not manipulation if it's in the person's best interest.
Correct. And so... But I think for years, like, I tried to contain, whether it be friends, families, loved ones, like, I tried to contain them based off of what I wanted them to be in my life. And that gave me a sense of control that I was not responsible for. Like, I would look at someone, like, you know, it's like whenever you meet someone and you're like, oh, wow, like, I really see the potential in this person, but I don't want to see who they are right now. There's nothing wrong with seeing the potential, but you have to accept them for who they are at this moment for you to actually ever encourage them to grow. Because if all you see is their potential, then you're never actually going to get to know the person. And I think that gives us a certain amount of control. Like whenever I ran a service company for about 8 years, and I would have employees that would come in. And I remember, like, you know, in low-level management, whenever I first started understanding managing people, I would always, like, look at the person's potential, and I would tell them, oh, man, you got so much potential. You've got so much potential. You have some, but I would never address, like, what they were currently going through because I wouldn't want to. And the reason I didn't want to is because I didn't want to address what I was going through because I wanted to fix them so I didn't have to fix myself. I wanted to coach them so I didn't have to coach myself. Like, you talk also whenever it comes to, like, what a coach or what someone that is called to basically be a pastor or a shepherd is. Like, you know, if you look at, like, people that go and summit Mount Everest, right? There's 2 people that are going to take part in that. Like, if you just look at, like, the way it goes, you're going to have a Sherpa, you're going to have a coach, right? You're going to have someone that has walked paths before, has seen paths before, and then you're going to go the hiker. Who's the one that's getting the picture at the end of the day? The hiker. The Sherpa is there to guide. It's not there to be the superhero. And I think we get lost whenever it comes to people that have this calling to guide people or to share circumstances or to be a manager. We get caught wanting to be both the person in the spotlight as well as the person that got the people to the spotlight. And you can't do both. You have to choose which one you want to do. And there's a really good book by Richard Rohr called The Immortal Diamond. And he's kind of a controversial Christian religious figure, but I love him. I don't agree with all of his theology, but the one thing I do agree is he talks about, like, your truest self is the closest to God, and the only way you can get there is the death of your false ego or your false self. And our false self a lot of time is built on insecurity. And, you know, we'll build up these narratives on our head based off of, like, mine was a shame-based narratives. From a very young age, I believed that the only way I could know God or God would accept me is if I was perfect. But from a human standpoint, my reptilian brain is looking at things like, well, nothing's perfect, so I can't ever be perfect. So what did I do? Well, I lied. So I projected this image of perfection, and then what I'm constantly doing whenever you're projecting an image of perfection or everything's okay is you're constantly chasing the image of perfection. So therefore you can never actually be a whole one with who you are. And so the longer that you basically build those processes, those neural pathways in your brain of, like, I'm never actually enough as I am, and I'm always chasing this image of perfection, but I know I can never accomplish it, the further you get away from your true self, which is accepting where you're at, your imperfections and everything else, and allowing yourself to learn lessons from those things. And that is a sense of control to where, especially with other people, like, we try to control that narrative, or we try to control or manipulate them to fit in our box of whatever our projection is. And it can be a very dangerous path to go down. I mean, I lost myself in the sauce for years. I still lose myself in the sauce sometimes where I'm trying to project this image of I have all together. I don't have it all together. I'm never going to have it all together, and I'm always going to have another lesson to learn. And that is the beauty of this thing that we call life, is the fact that you're never going to have it all figured out. So you can wake up another day learning something new.
Different levels, different devils.
Different levels, different devils.
So you're always changing. So every day is a different level.
Every single day.
Every day there's going to be a different devil that you have yet to encounter, to experience. You literally don't know. So the only thing that we can do is be in a space of preparedness, of like I'm acknowledging that I'm probably going to get dunked on in a game of basketball if I'm around the right competition, which is where you want to be better. That's right. So you have to accept that. The best have been dunked on. Yep. It just is that way. So why we don't run from that? You know, it's just part of the game. So like even Dr. Morrell has horrific mood swings. Like I got dunked on last Wednesday. Like I'm talking bad by my own practice. Just whap. And, you know, take that to the face. Like, and of course you're still in a little bit of shock, you know, getting dunked on, or everybody has a plan till you get hit in the mouth. Right. So even me, I get hit in the mouth and I'm in the middle of a mood swing and I'm feeling crazy. And that is the point where the nervous system is just super dysregulated. It's everywhere. Nothing is making sense. What is going on? And then to be able to pull it all back into a center and to be able to rebuild off of my foundation. So that's a practice. It's a process. How quickly can I get myself back into alignment, reintegrating the lessons that I just learned? I had to see a patient that same night after I just went through that really, really rough experience. So I had to get my shit back together so I can do it in a better way to make sure it doesn't happen again for the next one. And then sure enough, the rest of the week, those patients do A1, great, like excellent, because it locked me back into my craft. Getting dunked on reminds me, hey, you better have your head on a swivel, man. You need to be on defense. You make sure you're doing your job very, very well to make sure that pain doesn't happen again. And when it does, the bounce back has to be quicker because I have to get back on offense now. Yeah. There's no more just sitting around and just laying and wallowing in your misery. To get back in after it. Every time that you do that, that is how you build confidence, because I was able to pull myself back together rapidly. That same experience would knock me out for like weeks back in the day. Like I'm talking weeks. Like there was one time in med school where my first presentation, like in front of 150 kids in their little white coats and 5 or 6 doctors and instructors, and I had a panic attack, bro. I froze. And I couldn't even remember the name of the people. My only job was to introduce the team, and I literally choked, and I couldn't remember the first person's name. And the crowd goes, "Ooh!" I literally heard someone go, "Oh no!" in the crowd, and I was like, "Shit!" And then it was also recorded. They recorded the line, they projected to Tulsa. Right. So then I know there's a whole other group of people in Tulsa that were watching that too, like 40 or 50 more students. Anyways, that had me jacked for probably about a month. That's all I could think about for a month at the middle of the night, just being like, I suck so much. I can't believe I let this happen. And no lives were lost. There was no suicide attempt. No one cared. Nobody cared. Right. I mean, you probably got a couple chuckles, but like the next day, no one's out there thinking about that. Only me. Versus now, I can have 3 patients, like legit life or death situations, and to be able to put the pieces back together on all those and reframe and recollect everybody, like legitimate life or death threats, and to be frazzled and feel myself like falling apart, and then reframe and put the pieces back together. Yo, like the level of like, dude, I can do this. Like I can legit do this. I'm not afraid of any conversation. I've had to talk to people who just slit their necks, right? And I have to go in there, or they just got raped, and I have to go in there and try to talk life back into them. Yeah. Yeah, you think I'm scared to have a conversation with you? No. But honestly, yes. So before this, I'm still like feeling a little, to be out here with like lights and cameras. There's just still a little bit of like wanting to like squirm and run and dissociate. It's the nature of my past and who I used to be. But I stomp it out. Good prayer, good breath. We locked in. We get to deliver a freaking awesome conversation. Yo, you keep building that over and over and over and over. How do people get so good? It literally starts right here, right now. So up here, the same process and the same way that it feels for this person up here is exactly how that can feel for you right here, right now, if you lock in. That's the gift. It's not there. It's here, Adam.
Yeah, I think that I like the title of reframing whenever it comes to this episode. There's three R's to reframing that I teach, and I actually have a class on reframing based off of the story I told you. And the three R's are: first, you got to reassess or reevaluate. Whenever you're in a situation, you find yourself scattered, you find yourself in the maze, you have to reassess the situation. Well, let me tell you what the three R's. Three R's are reassess, recenter, and then reengage. So first, you reassess the situation. Like, is this actually as bad as what I think it is? Is this actually is the world actually ending? I encourage people to journal in that moment. Like, whenever you're catastrophizing, whenever you're fantasizing, you start disassociating. Like, write it down, get it actualized, get it out there, turn it into a physical form. After you do that, then you recenter yourself. Go breathe, go exercise, go do something to start creating dopamine, release endorphins. Like, get yourself in a position to recenter yourself and bring you back to what reality is. Go back and read your journal of what you just wrote down and go, oh, wow, it's not actually as bad as what I thought it was. And then once you've done those things, then go re-engage. Allow yourself to actually process through that, to allow yourself to reframe whatever that situation is. So instead of it becoming a mistake, it becomes a lesson learned, which therefore will allow you to build more resilience, right? Like, because that's what we're ultimately doing. We're building resilience. Resilience is the number one thing. Whenever I hired people at the company I worked, that was the number one trait I looked for. Like, how many things have you overcome? Like, I would hire people that had never even worked in the industry that, in the business that I ran. I would want people that just had resilience, because like, you can't teach that. It is a learned trait to where you overcome obstacles repeatedly to build up that muscle. It's like whenever it comes to the number one thing that people should work on, it's building your skeletal muscle. Like, if you work on building your skeletal muscle consistently, that will solve a lot of your health issues long term. But the only way you're going to build your skeletal muscle is by slowly increasing the stress on your muscle groups. It's the only way to do it, is by slowly increasing that. It's like if you're working out or you're lifting, like, you should always slowly be improving, or at least add to the improvement every single day for long-term results. But we live in a society to where we want it now. We want it fixed now. And we don't want to do the work to actually get to that next level.
Heck of a deal there. That's what it means to be a human being. It's quite the journey. So I guess one final question I have for you is, you said it's all purpose and why based. Can you walk me through the process that you use for helping people achieve theirs?
So yeah, I've got I actually just launched a school. So SKOOL, which is like connected with Alex Ramosi, to where I'm actually going to digitalize all of this. So everything's going to be very easy to walk through, because I want to really expand my impact to where it's not just as much one-on-one. I want to bring this information to more people and make it to where it's more affordable, because I really see a deficiency whenever it comes to people striving over profit instead of purpose. So whenever it comes to finding people's whys or solving their why, right? Their core thing that you wake up every day. For me, it's hope. We try to first boil that down to one word. So the very first way I start sessions is I literally ask 8 questions and have them answer them, and then we go analyze them and figure out, why do we answer the questions that way? We then trace back, how did I get here? Like, why did I make these choices? I mean, me plus my past experience equals why I do X, right? At a very simplistic term. So we kind of start tracing that back, and then I go through the backpack theory, which is unpacking your past experiences to really understand why you do what you do currently. We then go through a process of basically looking at your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, and how we can unpack those things and look at very simple processes that we can incorporate into our lives to protect ourselves mentally and make ourselves mentally stronger, make ourselves physically stronger, and then ultimately make ourselves aware of the spirituality that we all dwell in as a collective humanity. The third step in that process is start understanding goals, habit stacking, and then also I've got something called a TVI calculator that I came up with, where you track all of your time for 1 month so that you actually understand where your time is actually going. Because many of us, we want to accomplish goals or we want to do things, but we don't actually realize where our time is going. So for 30 days, you actually track your time in a time tracking app, and you actually categorize the top 10 things that you spend time on so that you can actually start allotting or budgeting your time, which is your most valuable resource. And in the very last session on the personal why, we let go of that false self. Because typically whenever it comes to your word, like my word is hope, right? Well, what's the opposite of hope? It's hopeless. 5-year-old Adam that heard the narrative that he was never going to be good enough, right? That he had to be perfect in order for God to accept him, or he had to present or project this image of perfection. That was a hopeless Adam. I gave up on little Adam when I was 5 years old until I discovered the word hope. But in order for me to actually move forward into hope, I had to go back and look at little Adam and look at all the things that Adam had learned from a very young age, and I had to let go of those negative thoughts and action. And then at the very end of it, we actually do a fire burning ceremony where you write a letter to your younger self, and you write a letter about what you've learned. You write a letter about all the things you've gone through. And then you write a letter to your present and future self about where you're going to go from it. And then you light the letter on fire, let go of who you were, and then you step forward into a singular word that you can wake up every single day, realizing the fact that over time that could change and adapt. So that is my process in a simplistic term to help people really boil down their life and their purpose to a single word.
Wow. We have a completely different process for that. I thought, we're going to be like lockstep on this. Not the same at all. Not the same at all. So the way that I go about it, just to cross and share. Yeah. Because I'm very interested in purpose-driven work. Yeah, that's like the number one thing. And just to explain that from the beginning, the reason. So purpose or reward, as we're feeling it in our brain, that is the nucleus accumbens. So this is when people say dopamine, what they really mean is they want dopamine in this brain area. This is the one that makes us feel a sensation called neurostabilization, which is a sensation of peace. I am stimulated, but I'm also calm at the same time. I'm hyper present in this experience, in flow, for example. Now, this brain area is, I call it the Jesus Christ brain area. Like, this is your deepest purpose. You push this button, it's better than anything, right? And you can push this button by like dumping a bunch of drugs on it because you're just flooding the systems with dopamine. So you get it for a little bit and then it goes away, right? So at the end of the day, this brain area is going to be responsible for motivation, because once you have felt that, you want to go do it again, right? I love these conversations. So my brain is like seeking out these conversations and sharing information. It's also responsible for aversion, because it knows when I'm not getting that to get away from here, right? So when an addict is around a bunch of sober people, this is the opposite of what they're trying to do. So it's like, get me out of here. So if I'm in a place where this person's only trying to talk about whatever boring thing, aversion kicks in for me, where it's like, I got to get out of here, right? Or if I'm in a situation where people are like just drunk partying and not trying to listen, and it's not the vibe, the aversion within me is like, I got to go. And then we're magnetized towards the things that would bring us back that sensation. It also self-sensitizes. So the more you do it, the more that it wants to do it. This becomes very dangerous. It is the nature of addiction. So if it's drugs, it's drugs. If it's vapes, it's vapes. If it's pornography, it's pornography. If it's aggression, it's aggression. So whatever's getting that release in you or pushing that button, you're gonna seek it out again, and then you're gonna avert or stay away from things that don't do that for you. So that's the very difficult part about once you become a liar or a thief or an addict, is now you're aversive to the good things. So you have to recognize that within you. When I say humility, you have to let go of absolutely everything and those to get back to that foundation. So in general, I pull that up on scans for people to show people what is the nucleus accumbens and how we can press that button for them. And then I just reverse engineer the process. Okay, so generally 4 practices. And then you're trying to boil it down to a word. And I say, don't do that at all. Because people are so afraid to put their purpose into a word on the front end. There's aversion when it comes to that. Because how many freaking exercises have I been through where people are like, well, let's figure out your purpose and like detail out your life. And then you try to boil it down into a sentence, and I still don't like feel it. You know what I mean? I don't feel it. And this may be because I'm a little bit neurodiverse and I'm more of an emotional creature. And the hyperlogical is actually a problem for me. And it frames my everything into one word. And I don't really, my brain doesn't like that. That to me is making me finite. Versus, what is the emotion? So on the exercise I have, there's a lightning bolt in the middle. And then it's personal, professional, relationships, and then passions. So whenever you're around people that you absolutely love and you are deep in conversation and you're sharing the word, what is the sensation, the feeling, that button being pushed for Adam? That's the compass. That's our true north. That is the sensation of which we seek. That is the target. And truth be told, there's no word to describe my purpose, Adam. It doesn't exist. Love doesn't describe love. God doesn't describe God. So the label is just like this outside thing. So I'm interested in what is the feeling, the presence that is so powerful, it's undeniable. These words that we're trying to use, those are simply just highway signs that are pointing to your actual purpose, which is a feeling, a sensation, a way of being. So let's target that. We aim for that. What is that sensation when you're around people? This is the goal in conversation for me. What is that sensation whenever I am engaged in my passions? Right? It's just freaking hype. I love it. It's electric. Snowboarding, wakeboarding, weightlifting, martial arts, reading an awesome book, epic podcast. These things are literally just hype to me. But I can say that word hype. But when I feel hype, we're locked in. Same thing for my personal life. Like I don't always want to I used to wouldn't take care of myself. I didn't care. It wasn't until I developed self-respect and I saw my potential of I do these things so I can do more so that I could be more and help and share more and more. So when I put all of those into one collective center, the circle, this is the target of which I'm aiming at, the compass. This is the button. So this is how I push the button. This is the why. And then how do I go about doing those things? And then what are the specific things? So I'm outlining this person's identity. Your identity is your thoughts, beliefs, and actions that you identify with. Your belief is going to be the why. Outside of that is going to be the thoughts or the how you go about it, your core values. And then the what's are going to be the actions on the outside of that. If the what matches the how, matches the why, that is a fully authentic person. I am authentic. I might be weird, I might be different or whatever it is, but you can't say that I'm not. I'm not, he believes whatever he's saying. Right. And I was very interested in that because I never had that. No. So I wanted to match it up. So what am I? Say we'll choose a category. So professional, right? I am a doctor, psychiatrist, psychotherapist. Okay. That's what I do. How do I do it? I try to be extremely engaging and stimulating because everybody has a dopamine issue, Adam. And I know that. If I can't maintain this person's attention and arousal, then they're not gonna remember anything of what I say. So I'm also up to date, try to be informative, and most importantly, caring and empathetic and vulnerable in that I have been through these horrific things also. There's no shame, no guilt here, no judgment being passed. Why? Because I'm trying to elevate souls. I'm trying to merge heaven and earth, to save lives. So when I show up, and this can happen to me, bro, I'll be sitting in some psychotherapy and I'll start checking out sometimes. Because it's hard to maintain conversations for that long, especially when you're a dopamine junkie. And then literally it clicks. Why am I in this conversation? I'm here to elevate this person's soul. Am I doing that? No. Oh, in which case, let's lock in. And as soon as I think that thought, the brain can spontaneously generate its own dopamine. I can pull up a scan right now. I can show you this right now. Unlimited dopamine if we lock into that purpose. We lock into that sensation. And then from that, okay, I know that I'm here to elevate souls. How do I do that? Oh, I've already written all that down. Well, what do I do specifically? Oh, I've already written that down. So I can lock myself into the program of which I'm trying to become. So there's higher self that we've put on paper and created. And this is your brain training program. The same way that we would do this for a fitness program is exactly what we're doing for your purpose and your brain. And then it's all simple and it's all right here, right in front of you. It looks like a target. So when you hit it, you feel great. When you don't, that's a sin. You missed your mark. This is what I was trying to do and I didn't do it. So of course I feel terrible. And it's like merging neurobiology, philosophy, and like Christianity, plugging it all in one little spot.
I love that, dude. You know what I love even more? There's 8 million people in the world. Or 8 billion, sorry.
Like 1 million.
Yeah. Miscalculation. And, you know, I think, you know, the inside out thinking or the circle, the, you know, why, how, what, Simon Sinek's TED Talk.
Yeah.
18 minutes was one of my inspirations behind starting, you know, my program. And I think there's two takeaways from like, you know, the way that both of us described, you know, our approach on things. They're so different, but so similar in so many ways. in different people have different communication methods based off of what their experiences are. And that's one of the beautiful things about creation, and the beautiful things about there being so many people out there is there's so many different perspectives, and there's so many different people, and there's so many different ways to talk to people. And dude, I love your approach whenever it comes to the what, how, what, which is basically I have a similar thing where you figure out your why, then you figure out how you're going to do it and what you do. So I've got it broken down a little bit different to where it's like your personal, your career, and then your community / art / whatever your belief is. So it's 3 different sections or a series of things with a bunch of like mini training modules depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But I really like your method whenever it comes to the feeling, the emotion, the energy. And I really actually reverberate. I actually really understand that a lot. It's just 2 different ways of looking at it. And I think it's awesome. And it's always encouraging, like sitting in a room with someone and hearing their passion behind just going and investing and sharing their experiences with others to let them know that they're not alone, and let them know that other people have been through it, and let them know that there is hope on the other side of whatever they're going through. And I have a lot of respect for you, dude, and I love what you do, and I really appreciate it. And dude, anytime someone talks to me and they're like, hey man, like I could use some real help, or they're talking about going to a psychologist, psychiatrist or whatever, like, I always tell them like, you should go check this guy out, because he's really doing something different, cutting edge, that I really think speaks to the human, not just the dollar, or the purpose, not just the profit. And I love that about you, man. I think God's doing something really powerful in your life, and I think you're going to continue to grow. I think you're going to continue to find success. I think that you've just now started bridging that. You've just now started the bridge to where God's leading you to, and I think it's going to be an incredible future, and I can't wait to see how many millions of people's lives. I'll say it on the podcast right now. Dude, I can't wait until I'm sitting in an audience at a stadium where you're standing up there and you're talking about your book that you wrote, about all the things that you overcame, about the different methods of psychiatry that you've explored, and just very freely sharing your testimony and how God has worked through your life. And I can't wait to sit there in that building with you and share that experience and look around at all these people, all these millions upon millions of lives that you've impacted through transparency, honesty, and just really sharing your faith. I can't wait for that moment.
Hallelujah, brother. I trust you. As you were speaking, I was like, my man's a visionary. So, and giving the gift of that is, and to be able to actually receive it, that's because people they speak life into you, and old me is like, now it's like, bring it on, baby. We'll be at the top together. Like I said, we'll start with this Crested Butte thing, man. Hit a snowboard trip, share there. We're both on the same trajectory. That's why I reached out a couple days ago, and my antenna was going off, and I was like, it's time. It's time for Benjamin and Adam to link.
I love it, dude. Doing
the same things in different avenues. And I love to see the dedication that you have. Like you're doing it. You're putting it out there. There's people who talk, and there are people who do preach the gospel, speak it if you have to. And I can appreciate you living it.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
The words are nice, but living it's even better, brother.
Thank you.
All right, we out, y'all.
Later.